Greetings tubers, and welcome to this second video in a short series that explores why it might be that there are now seemingly large numbers of people who are not just rejecting the principles of authority and modern scientific thought, but who are actively denying the very existence of these principles to the point where they think that we as the human race, amongst other ludicrous ideas, are actually living on a flat earth, and that every government, every educational body, from the nursery to the university, every military, every cartographer, pilot, geographer, astronomer, physicist, geologist, in fact every position of high authority on the planet is involved in some master conspiracy that has been lying to us for centuries in order to maintain the illusion that we live on this stationary disc, possibly under some kind of mythical dome. Now, the explanations that these people offer to deny the measurable and observable fact that we are on a rotating star-orbiting sphere are often akin to a display of mental illness. And the only counter they have to the scientific absolutes that prove them wrong are to rant and to rave and bluster and shout. And even in the case of village idiot extraordinaire Nathan Oakley, he has completely invented a branch of physics that he appears to be the only person on the planet who understands. Now, this makes him either the finest mind that has ever existed, or just another confused Flerfer with no idea whatsoever of how the world works. Now, my money is on the latter, since what he has actually done, despite his claims of understanding this strange branch of physics, is that he has simply invented an explanation for something within his mindless idea of what physics actually is, without having any real-life physics to back it up. Now, this relates to what he believes to be a verifiable observation, that someone walking away from a camera along a perfectly flat surface will appear as if they are departing over the horizon. Now, take a look at this soppy git, spewing his word salad about concepts that he has absolutely no understanding of.
So for a long time I've been trying to make the analogy that if you take off a pair of shoes and back away from them, you will see them disappear eventually due to their angular size being too small to see. And you can induce this effect by reducing the angle. So the angle of attack is essentially what causes things to disappear from bottom up. So in this example I've set a book at the end of this very long hall which they play table tennis on, so it's incredibly flat, and as you can see, as I lower my angle, the book disappears. Now, purely by chance, as I was doing this, somebody came along and actually picked up and removed the book as they were clearing away the hall while I was doing this. But just by luck, there was a woman with a pair of shoes on actually lifting the book out of place, which you can see here. So as she reaches down, the book and her shoes disappear. Purely by chance, but very handy, as it matches the example I give. So the shoes vanish, the person who has a bigger angle, obviously they're larger than their shoes, is still perfectly visible, and this is exactly the same as a pair of wind turbines disappearing into the distance, or anything disappearing into the distance due to angular size, or the angle of attack being too limited to see the item.
Now, first and foremost, that experiment is about as convincing as sticking whiskers on a worm and trying to tell everybody it's a cat. Especially when you take a look right at the end of the clip and you see that not only is the book that he's focusing on in another room across a hallway, but it's also down a step that is outside the room that Oakley bloody Coakley is spouting nonsense in. Now, I can only presume that it was filmed in the daycare centre where his family send him for respite care. He must know that he's talking absolute nonsense, but well, he can't back down or he'd lose his monetisation. I've got a feeling that I'll be coming back to Mr. Oakley in the future, probably several times. Anyway, in my last video, I explored the concept of the internet cookie and its role in propagating this flat earth insanity to the mouth-breathing masses. But as I said there are many reasons as to why the more gullible amongst the population have taken this flat earth idea and are running with it. Another contributing reason, I believe, and though it sounds a little off the wall, I know, but it's the loss of the British manufacturing industries. I know that seems like a tenuous link, but stay with me. Because for decades, certainly up until the 1960s, beginning of the 1960s, Britain was a manufacturing powerhouse. We had exports that any country on the planet would kill for. But from the mid-60s onwards, there was a fair amount of social degradation arising from the loss of these industries. Traditionally in the industrial heartlands of the UK, from the southwest up through South Wales, the Midlands, up through the north of England, parts of Scotland, certainly the shipbuilding up on the Clyde, that sort of thing. There's no point going into the politics behind it, but it was the fault of several consecutive governments of various political persuasions. The loss of these jobs, which were not being replaced, and when they were replaced with mediocre jobs of very, very low wages. This created high unemployment, crime rose, the family unit suffered, and within such an environment as that, it is the children who will be amongst the first to suffer. But as they become desensitized to the decay that they see around them, they begin to regard it as normal. Now, apathy sets in the home. People lose interest, especially where people believe that, they'll say, well, it's the government's responsibility to motivate and educate our children. And certainly in the place where I grew up, it's also many of them will say, well, it's the government's responsibility also to give me money, a car, holiday, flat screen TV, and crates of Strongbow. But that's just my mini rant. This kind of attitude towards life becomes normalised over successive generations. And we have to couple that cause with something that came a little later in the 1980s, which I believe has had a big impact on why so many people have been almost, say, purposefully dissuaded from questioning, from researching for themselves. They've had the ability to had that ability removed from them. And I believe that was also to do with the introduction of school league tables. That's when the real problems began. Now, after the removal of the O-level syllabus in, I think, 1987, I was actually the last year to do O-levels. After that, they introduced the GCSE system, and the emphasis on learning shifted away from a practical bias, certainly within the sciences, to a more fact-based system of education where the student was essentially taught to robotically regurgitate information parrot fashion, often with very little need to actually understand the subject they were studying in any depth. But being able to simply wheel the facts off in an exam often guaranteed a pass of that GCSE, and the school kept looking good. Now, this meant that those who struggled with these educational techniques, because not everybody learns in the same way, many fell behind. And as this might lower the position of the school on the league tables, those struggling students were put either into special measure sets, where the mainstream league tables didn't factor, or simply excluded from the system altogether. As an interesting sideline, it was only in the news this week that children in special measure sets can no longer be excluded from league tables, which can only be a good thing. They have to now include their results in the league tables. But as we say, essentially any method to keep that school looking good on paper, it was all right by them. So with this and various other factors, it is arguable that since the late 70s through the 80s, and things improved in the 90s, I think, but there was a general lowering in the IQ of a whole section of the population. Now, this happened at a time when the internet was becoming ever easier to access, and people who for years had any desire to question and research facts for themselves had that kicked out of them. They were more inclined to simply start believing just about anything that was shown to them, especially when that pseudoscientific nonsense was presented with an air of authority. Now, these factors brought together means that there is now a whole section of the population within that generation who are extremely susceptible to the suggestions of external idiocy. But things are not all gloomy. I was going to end this video on probably been a low note, a note of despair, but I found a video yesterday online, and it's a young lady, and when I first watched this video, I thought that it corroborated everything I just said, okay? But this young lady here, this is Aleksandra, and she looks like a perfectly normal girl of about 11 or 12 years of age. She's quite nicely spoken, gives the appearance of a child from a decent enough home, good parents who looked after her. And what got me worried was that she went immediately into saying something like this.
There's a lot of idiots out there that believe that the world is a sphere, but they're wrong because the earth is indeed flat.
Now that instantly got my attention, and I'm sat here thinking, oh, seven hells, they got to her. But the more I watched, it's only a short video, but the more I watched, the more I realised that this young lady, she isn't flying the flag of Flerferism at all. She's actually being extremely and very cleverly satirical, and she's having a right poke at the Flerfers, because what she presents are many of the sort of the standard tropes, that this word salad that the Flerfers like to regurgitate, including these little gems.
You may be thinking, just because what we see is flat doesn't prove that the earth is flat. Well, you may be like, why are all the planets sphere, and why would earth be flat? Let me tell you this, earth is not a planet. And you may be like, okay, so the earth is flat, then why is the moon not flat? The moon isn't flat because it's not earth.
And the absolute classic that she comes out with, which is a proper poke in the eye for them, is this.
Why would everything that people on earth manufacture pretty much be flat? For example, shoes. Do they have a flat bottom? Yes, they do. Why? Because the earth is flat.
Now, this proves, to me at least, beyond any doubt, that there are children with more intellectual capacity than many of the supposed adults who spew this flat earth nonsense across the web on a daily basis. But what amused me more than anything was that there appeared to be a lot of flat earthers who didn't get the satire in her video, and they started commenting on it. One in particular, who actually came to the comment section after somebody else had asked her, was she joking? And she said, yes, she is joking. She's not really a flat earther. And I'm sure many of you will have come across him, the sleeping warrior, or the slurping warrior, as I like to call him. And he actually posted this on her site, to which she answered in a perfectly logical way that, yes, we do live on a globe, and so all power to this girl. Now, this video actually gives us factualists great hope, but I'm actually filled with positive hope that flat earth philosophy can never become a majority thought, simply because there is absolutely no evidence for it whatsoever. Those who take it at fact are actually few and far between. And even amongst those who do propagate it, I find it difficult to believe that all of them genuinely believe what they're saying. But they will keep saying it as long as their YouTube channels take money from others and give it to them. All we have to do is keep proving them wrong at every turn, which, let's face it, it isn't really that difficult. They cite physics without actually having any knowledge of the subject and no idea how it works. They think that because their minds tell them something, that it must be true. Anyway, I have taken up enough of your time. So once again, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing, as I will be posting many more videos in the coming months on many and various insanities of many and various conspiracy theories. I've put the link to young Aleksandra's channel below, so you can go and see for yourself what a subtly canny young lass she is. But above all, remember, the Earth is a globe. Stick to it.